In this tape, Doug Swisher will now challenge you to the limit. He'll show you how to develop your thought process and physical skills to a point where you'll be able to tackle any trout fishing situation. He'll show you how to be aggressive and make things happen. He'll show you how to be the very best fly fisherman you can possibly be.
Hi, I'm Doug Swisher. In our casting tapes, I taught you how to use your educated wrists to control the cast and how to make the proper presentation from any position in the stream. Then in our first strategy tape, you learn how to integrate the mental and physical skills necessary to become a successful fly fisherman. Now I'll teach you to effectively cover more water than you ever thought possible. I'll show you some new techniques for fishing those non-hatch situations. How to fish nymphs deep with stacked mending. How to fish more water in less time with advanced streamer methods. And how to fish dead water quickly and efficiently with realistic dry flies. And then, for those tough times when selective fish are rising, you'll learn how to effectively fish amps, how to identify and fish the masking and mimicking hatches, and how to handle the extremely difficult, complex hatches. Finally, I'll show you how to cope with those incredibly small midges. First, let's look at some specialty tools and knots that can be a big help to the serious trout fisherman. Probably the most important specialty tool of all is the stomach pump. To use it, of course, you must first catch at least one fish. Stomach pump is a very simple device. It's just a rubber bulb on the end of a plastic tube, kind of like a miniature turkey baster. It probably is really misnamed. It should be called a throat pump, because all you do to the fish is take the insects out that he's just swallowed, and they're right down in the lower end of the throat. But if this little device is used properly, it can show you an awful lot about fishing. It doesn't hurt the fish at all. Okay, let's get this little guy in here. Maybe we can check out and see what he's been eating here. Pretty little brown. Well, we'll get the hook out first, quickly. Now, if you want to pump one's stomach, probably misnamed, it should be called the throat pump, because all you do is squeeze the bulb and go down to the throat area, and you know you've got suction when the bulb stays closed like that. Now, all you have to do from this point is just pull it out, and all the goodies that fish has just eaten goes up in the bulb. Now, we release the fish, make sure he's in good shape. There he goes. Now, to get the goodies out of the bulb, squeeze it, fill it with water, and then squeeze everything out that he's just been eating, and that'll give you a really great tip as to what fly to put on. That tells you right now what that fish has been eating. A very valuable tool. The other important tool you might want to carry in your vest is a small pocket-sized monocular. They run in the 6 to 8 power range and are great for observing a feeding trout, especially one that's out in deeper water. Quite often, you can actually see the fly disappear in a swirl. Some anglers are reluctant to change flies because they're not very adept at tying knots. Learning how to tie on a new fly and add a tippet quickly will give you more incentive to change your pattern when you know you should. All it takes is practice. Actually, there are only 2 knots you need to know in the stream. One for tying on the fly, the other for replacing tippets. For the fly, I use the new swirl knot. It has incredibly high knot strength, very little bulk, which of course is important when you're fishing small flies, and best of all, it's really easy to tie. If you can tie a slip knot, you can quickly learn to tie the swirl. Let me show you how to tie the swirl knot. For this demonstration, I'll use this white rope to represent the tippet and this little no-hackle to represent the fly. First of all, come down through the eye with the tag end. Now, in most knots, you would tie the tippet right around the eye. For this knot, let's just push the fly up the tippet and work with the end of the tippet. But what we're going to do is take the tag in, wrap it around the main line, then take the tag in through the loop, and this forms your slip knot. Now, the key to this knot is hanging on to that tag in until you get the fly through the loop. So you bring the fly back and pass it through the slip knot, All the while, I'm hanging onto that tag end. Now, pull it right up on the tip of the eye, good and tight, like that. Clip the tag in, and you're all set. This is the new high-strength swirl knot. For adding tippets when they break off or get too short from changing flies, the best knot to use is the improved surgeon's knot. It has the advantage of allowing you to join any two sizes or types of monofilament without slipping. It's super easy to tie, especially at dusk when the visibility is low and the hatch is hot and heavy. The improved surgeon's knot is basically a double overhand knot. For this demonstration, the pink rope will be the leader, the white rope will be the tippet. I'm going to join the two. In the area where I'm going to join them, I overlap them 8 to 10 inches. Use plenty of monofilament. Marry the two together. Now, in that area, throw a loop, and you'll have a long end and a short end. Take both of them through the loop one time. That's your single overhand knot. Now, let's just do it again, and we have the double overhand knot. Before you pull the knot up, be sure you put some saliva on it so you lubricate it. Pull at first on all the four ends, and then finally pull with the long ends. Pull it up nice and snug. Clip the short ends up against the knot. This completes the improved surgeon's knot, and you have a super knot for putting on your tippets. Practice until you can change either your fly or your tippet in no more than 30 seconds. In our last tape, you learned that there are two basic conditions that exist in the stream. Either the fish are rising or they are not, and I demonstrated what to do in each situation. Now I'll show you how to refine those methods and add some exciting new techniques that will allow you to catch more fish in the most difficult situations. Stack mending is the ultimate method of fishing any fly deep. It utilizes your casting skill rather than relying on a weighted fly or leader. I want to show you stack mending, which is the best technique I know of putting your fly deep, right down in the bottom. But before I show you stack mending, let me point out the method that most anglers use to get their fly deep. Conventional mending is mainly where an angler throws his line upstream with an arm movement. This takes a little pressure off the fly, allows it to go down a small distance into the currents, but it's not very effective because there's line and too many side currents. The best way is to get the line and the leader straight upstream from the fly. And that's why we use stack mending. That's what it accomplishes. Before I show you the technique, let me just quickly describe it. First of all, you must establish your primary target, which is the place where you want your fly on the bottom. That's the place where you think the fish are lying. Now, it takes time for that fly to get down that deep, so you have to figure out how far upstream you throw your fly to give it time to get down to the bottom. And that is your secondary target. So once you've established your secondary target upstream, you make a straight line cast 2 or 3 feet past that target, immediately pick up your rod. This will slide the fly and the leader towards you, breaking surface tension, and allow the fly and leader to start sinking. After you've done that, then you start throwing the little mends of line right in behind the fly. And the key is in the quick wrist. It's not an arm motion, it's all in the wrist. Here's what it looks like. I'll make my straight line cast 2 or 3 feet past the target, pick the rod up, break surface tension. Now I'll use those quick little moves of my wrist to throw that line right in the same spot. We call it shooting it in the bucket. This keeps the pressure off that fly, allows it to sink deep to the bottom. Now, I follow along with my rod tip and I keep the line as tight as I can without dragging the fly. Let me show you that again. Straight line cast 2 or 3 feet past the target. Pick the rod up to break surface tension. Use your microsecond wrist to throw those little loops right out there in the same spot. Now you get the fly down deep where you want it. There's a variety of drifts you can use to end it up. You can just stand totally motionless and get dead swing, or you can add some little twitches with your hand or vibrate your rod tip. Or sometimes when the fish are in a chasing mood, after you do your stack mending, get the fly down deep, use that quick wrist. Now, if you want to make an escaping movement of the fly coming up, you raise your arm, vibrate the rod, or you can even throw a mend and swim that nymph broadside to the fish. For you fishermen that like to fish the big rivers, or even you salmon and steelhead fishermen, if you really work on that microsecond wrist, get a good flick in it and throw those loops really hard, you can handle some really big water. Great for fishing big nymphs and those big streamers that you use in the big old rivers, but you can throw that line almost all the way across the river and really sink that fly deep. You got all that line up behind the fly. It's amazing how far you can put it down in even a big, heavy current in a big river. Now, let's review the procedure, and I'll try to take a fish. Nice little run here for some stack mending. Let's see if we can get a cast up in here and run this nymph along the bottom. Remember, the object is to get that line and leader straight up above the fly, and I'll have to use a little steeple cast here over my head. Make the cast, let the fly settle for a second to establish, then start throwing those little loops up. Remember, it's all in the wrist. Little loops in the same segment of current, and that'll keep the pressure off that fly and let it sink. Now take up some of the slack, watch the end of that bright colored line. If something happens, then you pick up on it. Okay, let's run that down there again. Make the cast, let the fly establish. Now, that little shallow angle mend, right up behind. Now take out some of your slack. Here's where you watch the end of the line. Now if you want to make it rise like this, you just vibrate your hand a little bit, a little vibrato. If you get that strike, it'll be a tight line strike, so be ready for it. Let's go through here one more time. Establish the fly. Throw your little stacks upstream. Now establish your, what I call the tension system. The line just loops down to the water. If there's any movement in it, you set the hook. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Oh, nice bow, nice bow. Jump again, jump. Oh, he's a thrasher. Boy, he took that nymph from the bottom and came right to the surface with it. Second he felt that steel. Oh, nice fish. If I can just get him around that log. There we go. Now, always get that slack in. You feel a lot more comfortable when you get him in the reel. If you have to, put the line over the pinky like this. Now I feel better. He's on the reel. Oh, he still wants that log. He still wants that log. Oh, pretty bow. Golly, I can see that stripe from here. He took that little brown nymph just as it was going drag-free right along the bottom. You get a nice natural drift for that stack mending. The key is learning to watch the end of your line so you know when you got the strike. Because they can sure spit them out fast. They're like grease lightning. Oh, it's a better fish than I thought he was. Oh, I can see that nymph hooked right on the edge of his jaw. I hope it hangs in there. This 5X holds up. Come on, baby. That's about all I dare put on him for pressure. This is where these new tippets with a higher stretch come in. You can get a little more pressure on your fish. It's a little more forgiving, which is especially helpful in this heavier water where you have to fight them downstream. Come on, you baby. Oh, yeah. He's got a lot of measurement between his eyeballs, I'll tell you. Okay. Yeah, oh, he's bigger than I thought he was. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice jobby. Okay, pal. Thank you. Pleasure was all mine. Stack mending is the deadliest method I can teach you for getting your wet flies and nymphs on the bottom. Again, the key is educating your wrist to be super quick when you stack those small mends into the same segment of current. In our last tape, you learned the basic technique for fishing streamers. Now I'll show you how to greatly improve your technique. First, here are some points to remember when casting streamers. The idea is to keep the fly as wet as possible so it will sink faster. Wide loops are better. They don't dry the fly as much as tight loops and are less likely to foul the fly. Sometimes I even let the fly hit the water on my back cast or front cast to help keep it wet. Use maximum shooting on both front and back cast. This helps keep false casting to a minimum. In our first strategy tape, I taught you the basic concept of fishing streamers. I taught you that fish line up in a stream like cordwood from bank to bank. So obviously the best cast with a streamer would be to pull that fly from one bank to the other bank. In other words, keep it broadside to the trout. So that's a technique I showed you. Here's what it was, if you don't remember. Cast up and across, apply the control system, line over the finger, lower the rod, go with the flow. Now start stripping and bring that streamer right across in front of the fish. Good hooking angle, cover lots of water. When the fly finally gets down below and it's going to come upstream parallel to the current, hold the line loose over your finger and loosen your hand, so if you get that hard charging strike, you don't pull the hook out or break off. Now I'll show you how to do a better job with your advanced technique. And here's the way you do the better job. You'll learn to do what I call mend shooting. Mending is repositioning line on the water, and it's done with your quick wrist. If at the same time you mend, you shoot line out, that's called shoot mending, and it's critical to advanced streamer fishing. It allows you to cover more water, and it forms a track for your streamer, so it stays broadside. Here's the way it looks. Make your cast up and across, immediately shoot and mend the rest of your line, put the line over your finger, and start stripping. Now you're covering a lot more water at a good angle. Let's do that again. Throw up and across, straight line cast, immediately shoot mend. Now start your stripping, rotate your body away from the cast a little bit, you cover even more water. You can strip fast, you can strip slow, short ones, long ones. You play around with that to see what the fish want on a particular day. Now if you want to swim that fly straight downstream, shoot and mend the line this direction, pull on the line, there it goes. That gives you a super hooking angle. Now here's maybe my favorite method of stripping the line in. I call it flip and strip. I make the cast, I shoot and mend the line. Now I strip with the left hand, I flip with the right. Strip, flip. Each one of those motions imparts movement to the fly, and the little flip keeps mending the line and covers more water. Now remember, when you're fishing streamers, the idea is to cover as much water as possible. You keep fanning further, further, and further. Another technique that's really good when you're in a confined current, you want to swim that fly straight downstream, you throw it right straight up, line over the finger, strip a little faster than the current, that fly will go nice and deep, beautiful action and a great hooking angle. Okay, let's see if we can catch a fish. Hey, this is really a neat looking pool here. Let's apply some of the techniques we've been working on. Remember, the basic idea of streamer fishing is to pull that fly across in front of as many fish as you can. So let me try this for a minute here. Let's see if we can fan this pool, see if we can get something moving. Now that's the basic technique where I'm pulling this woolly bugger across. Now in the next cast, let's cover more water. What I'm going to do is do some shoot mending like this, throw some more line out my guides. Now I'm going to strip, and I'll cover a new segment of water, and I'm still covering it at that good angle. The reason we want to pull it across, of course, is to have a better hooking angle, and we just basically cover more fish. Now, a method of stripping I like to use is what I call the flip and strip. You can just strip, 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 but sometimes I get your fly in too fast. So, to slow it down a little, you strip, then you flip your rod tip. Strip, flip, strip, flip. You do it fast, and you can really boogie that fly right across the river. It's especially good in faster currents. Now let's just keep fanning this pool here, pulling that fly across. Try to keep that line perpendicular to the currents as long as you can. Notice how I rotate away from the cast to try to cover more of the pool. If I leave my old rod tip pointed over there towards the bank, I only cover half as much water. Notice also I don't worry too much about throwing a tight loop. If I try to throw a loop that's too tight, I'm going to dry that fly out, and I want to keep it wet. So sometimes I'll just slop the fly in, slop it back, keep it wet. Don't worry about looking pretty, worry about being effective. Okay, the min feed, whoop, one's looking at it. Come on, baby. Oh, he's chasing it. That's one thing about this kind of streamer fishing. You can usually see your fish coming. It's pretty exciting. It almost gets like dry fly fishing. It's so visual. Oop, there's another one that looked at it. Oh yeah. Oh, he looks like a pretty good fish. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's kind of murky water. These streamers sometimes pay off because of visibility. They're bigger. Fish can see them. You're moving them faster. Well, he's gonna rock and roll, but he's not gonna go airborne, I don't think. Come on. Oh, rainbow, rainbow, rainbow. Pretty fish. Oh, big red stripe. Love it. I better quit messing around and get him on the reel. He's going to give me enough trouble even when I get him on the reel, I think. He wants to take off. Oh, now he's going to thrash a little bit. Okay, keep your head up for so long, fella. Come on now, come on now. Get in here. I'm going to let you loose. Oh, pretty fish, pretty fish. Pretty fish. Can't rush this guy. Oh, look at that old woolly bugger sticking out of his mouth. He's tired. He's tired. Boy, that was... Oh, nice fish. Nice fish. Oh, yeah. Let's see how deep he took this thing. Oh, not bad. Not bad. Yeah. Pretty fish. Pretty fish. Okay, baby. Go back and get even bigger. The old woolly bugger strikes again. There'll be times when you want to fish in fast, deep runs like this, and if you apply the normal stripping techniques I've shown you before, your fly may get too much pressure on it. It may want to buoy up and come out of the water. So here's a couple of tips that'll help you when you fish this kind of fast water. Make your normal streamer cast up and across. Now, strip with your left hand, but let it slip back through. Strip, slip, strip, slip. You're just actually sawing the line back and forth. Add a little flip with the right wrist for your mend, and you've got a nice action for fishing this fast water without letting your fly come out. Strip, slip, strip, slip, strip, slip. The slip part is actually a mend, throws your line over and keeps forming the track. Now, if the water is really fast and you don't even want to strip in, just do the flip portion. We're not going to be stripping. We're just going to flip with the right wrist, and that'll give the fly all the action it needs to dance across the currents. Just do that again. You're not doing anything with your left hand as far as stripping. You're just flipping the rod with your right hand. Just little mends. And that'll make that fly track across those fast currents, but keep it from coming out of the water. Now, if you have to go really deep in some heavy runs, you'll apply your stack mending. Make your cast upstream, throw in your little mends, throw them right in the bucket in the same spot. That'll get the pressure off the fly. Now it's sinking. Now we'll shoot mend in the other direction to form the track. Now the fly is going to pick up speed and come across those currents. This is a terrific way for getting a streamer down in heavy water, especially for you salmon and steelhead fishermen. Do your stack mending, throw in all you need to get the fly down, get the pressure off. Now shoot mend the other direction, and that fly will be nice and deep. Now it'll start coming up and swimming across in front of the fish. So when you have to fish in those heavy currents like this, apply some of these techniques, and I think you'll be a lot more effective with your streamers. The woolly bugger is one of our most effective streamers. Barry Beck, whom you met in our first strategies tape, has developed a unique but deadly way of fishing it. Here's Barry to show you his special technique.
I doubt if Russell Blessing had any idea of what a universal fly the woolly bugger would become when he originated it. This is one dynamic underwater search type pattern. The woolly bugger has been used successfully in both fresh and salt water. It has taken virtually every game fish I know of. The secret of the woolly bugger is its marabou tail. Properly fished, it will pulsate, move, breathe for you, and just drive fish crazy. In addition, to create a jig-like effect, I add a split shot right at the head of the fly. Most people fish the woolly bugger with a hand strip retrieve. I do something a little differently. I use a hand-over-hand retrieve with a rod tip motion to give it a jig-like effect. Now you've seen how I work the woolly bugger. Now let's see if we can catch one. Remember, I referred to the woolly bugger as an underwater search type pattern. So we're going to start out with a short upstream cast here, give it a little mend, give the fly time to gain depth, and then start our hand over hand and our rod tip retrieve. And just search this water right here in front of us. With each cast, we'll extend out and systematically cover the water in front of us. Make sure you mend each cast, get the depth needed to get the fly down close to the bottom, and then start your retrieve. It's important to remember that you keep the rod tip at an angle away from the fly to absorb the shock when the fish takes. Keep that rod tip going and the hand retrieve and really make that tail pulsate. Extend our cast on over toward the other bank here. Little upstream mend, time for depth, and a retrieve. Retrieve the fly all the way in, almost to you, to where you can see it. Sometimes the fish will follow right to the very end before he takes. When you're casting a woolly bugger with weight on it, you want to open your loop up just a little bit and slow your casting stroke down. Actually, the weight of that lead will carry your fly forward for you. There are certain times that the woolly bugger works best. First thing in the morning, just take your time and work the woolly bugger through the pools. Search out the likely looking areas. Really effective just after a shower when the water just discolors just a little bit. You can experiment with your retrieves, speed them up, slow them down, try to excite the fish. There he is. Now we're into a good fish here. He really took that fly hard. Got a lot of power out there. He's just holding in the current. He's going to keep some pressure on him, keep the rod tip up a little bit on him. He can wear himself out, not us. Come on, fella. Not tired out yet. Today we're fishing with the original color pattern of the woolly bugger, black and olive. That's a black marabou tail and a black hackle palmered over an olive chenille body. It's perhaps one of the easiest of all flies to tie, and the color combinations are just endless. My favorite sizes are for trout fishing are from 4 to size 10. I think our rainbow here is just about ready to come over to net. We'll just get his head up here on top and slide the fellow in. There we go. Pretty fish. They really like those long marabou tails. It's a tail that's the real secret of that fly. Keep moving that rod tip and using that hand strip retrieve, and you'll just make that tail pulsate in water and really drives the fish crazy.
Streamer fishing is the deadliest method of catching a maximum number of fish, especially big ones, in a minimum amount of time, because it is the quickest way to cover the water. It's also a great way to explore new water. If you move fish that don't take the streamer, you can go back later with a nymph or dry fly, and you'll know where the fish will be. Now, I'll show you one of my favorite methods of fishing the water when there's no surface activity. In our last tape, I showed you how to fish dry fly attractors, such as the ugly rudimus and the Madam X. These are basically large, yummy-looking flies, but they really don't bear much resemblance to the natural insects that inhabit a trout stream. Quite often, I find it is much more effective to use patterns that look like the real thing. These flies are a little harder to see in the water, but they're a better representation of what the trout feed on day after day. They also greatly reduce the number of short strikes, which attractor patterns are notorious for. During the early morning, nothing is more deadly on non-feeding fish than a hen spinner in size 12 or 14. For mid-afternoon, I prefer one of the no-hackle duns, also in a size 12 or 14. There are two basic ways of fishing realistic dry flies: drag-free and skittering. Skittering imitates the fluttering of the natural insects. Quite often, the fish prefer movement over the drag-free approach. For the demonstration in skittering, I'm going to use this high-vis fly so you can see better what I'm doing. The realistic flies are very difficult to see in the water, so by using this one with the white wings, I think you'll get a better idea how to make your flies skitter in the water. Now, before you start skittering your flies, you got to make them float good. So it's very imperative that before you skitter, that you put your floatant on the fly, on the tippet, on the leader, and on the line. You want everything floating as high as it can. Another tip that'll really help you with your flies, not only for skittering, but for any fishing, is to pre-soak them in Scotch Guard. The night before you go fishing, pick out the flies you want to use the next day, soak them in Scotch Guard, let them air dry overnight, stick them in your vest in the morning, then put your floatant on when you go to use each fly, and that double treatment will make your flies last twice as long and will certainly help your skittering. Now let me show you how to skitter. You can actually skitter in any angle you want to, upstream, right bank, left bank, down, but it's probably more effective to skitter cross-stream, mainly because of the hooking angle. So the first step is a straight line cast. The second one is to elevate your rod. This is one of the few cases where you do hold your rod high. Now, if you strip on the fly, it starts coming across the currents. Let's do that again. Straight line cast, rod high, strip, strip, quick flick with the strip of the left hand. Now that's pretty good skittering, but to really make that fly look alive, wiggle your right wrist as you strip with your left hand. And that'll double the speed and make that fly come across in a more erratic fashion, more like the natural. Strip with your left, shake your hand with your right. And that fly will just bounce across the riffles and it'll look like the real thing to a fish. Now you'll expect a lot of short strikes in this technique because you're really moving that fly. But learn to skitter and you can cover an awful lot of water, especially in big pools like this. It just takes a matter of minutes to cover a whole pool. Deadly technique. Okay, now I want to give you a demonstration of how to fish both drag-free and skittering at the same time, one after the other. That's what a lot of really good fishermen do all day long. Here's what I'm talking about. When I cast across this current, very quickly the line starts to bow and to go downstream ahead of the fly and drag it. Well, if I pick the rod tip up and drop it quickly, I've moved the fly over, I've skittered it, and then I'm off and running on another drag-free float. So here's the way it looks when you're doing it in full-time speed. Make your cast, let your fly float drag-free, bounce your rod and drop it. That'll skitter your fly, bounce it again, it'll skitter again, then it'll be drag-free. Bounce it, drag-free, bounce it, drag-free, or skitter, drag-free. So you're getting the combination of both the drag-free float and the skitter. Try it next time you're out in the stream. Oh, he's coming at me, son of a gun. Get the slack. Little no-hackle did the trick. Over there on the edge of that tongue of current. Always a good food supply over there. Okay, now we get caught up with the slack, see what we got here. Now, what do we got? Oh, rainbow, pretty fish. Whoa, jumper, jumper. Oh, come here now. Come on. Tough guy. Now, I get the slack on him. I'll All that slack on the reel. Nice fish. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Come on, guy. All right. Get that little no-hackle out of your mouth there. Oh, he's not ready. Hot. Hot. Come on now. Ooh. Now he's waking up. Okay. Remember, when they take those runs like that, point the rod at them. When you can, get their head up. You take it. Ah, you dropped the rod. Okay. Come on, you got to run out of gas pretty soon. You're not that big. That one, though. Eddie, come over here. No hackle, hang in there. Please stay in there. Okay. Little gray-yellow no hackle right in the corner of the mouth. Little downstream approach. Now if I can get that little fly out. Uh-oh. Came out kind of easy. Okay, pretty fish. Nice stripe. Okay. Here we go. You all set? Whew! Fun fish. Not only is skittering a deadly technique, but it allows you to cover a maximum amount of water in minimum time. It's great for covering large pools. The downstream approach makes it easier to cover more water, and that's one of the keys in fishing when the fish aren't rising. Cover as much water as possible. Here's a good rule to follow. When the fishing is slow, move fast. When the fishing is fast, move slow. In other words, when the fish aren't rising, cover as much water as possible to increase your chances. But when they are rising, move slowly and fish over the largest risers. Now let's talk about fishing to rising trout. The rise is a relatively short period that occurs almost every day when the fish are actively feeding on the surface. This is the magical moment, the ultimate visual pleasure in fly fishing. Sometimes rising trout take insects so gently the rises are almost imperceptible. This is particularly true when they're feeding on tiny terrestrials like ants and jacids. Now here's Barry Beck to show you how he fishes ants.
Ants are one of the most prolific of all the terrestrial insects that live along a trout stream. They're something that we all recognize, and they provide a major food source for the trout through the hot months of July and August. Ants come in a variety of sizes and colors. Black and red are the most common, and I tie mine in sizes from 14 through 22. Remember, when we're fishing ants in the really small sizes, it's going to require tippet sizes of 6 and 7x. And because of their delicacy, we're going to have to be extremely careful when we set the hook and play the fish in. We've got a couple of sipping fish across the stream here. We're going to use a standard dry fly approach. We're looking for a quartering upstream cast and a little bit of a mend, a slack line, drag free float into the fish. Let's give it a try. For the eastern angler that fishes in a small trout stream, he's got a green foliage behind him. He really should blend in with that, sort of become very much like a hunter and a stalker. If we wear a white hat and a white shirt, we're really going to stand out almost like a sore thumb to these fish. So I wear a green vest and a green shirt and sort of drab colors just to blend in. We want to make sure that we're getting absolutely a drag-free float. We want to get that fly up above the fish just a little bit, let it settle down on the water gently, and float right in on top his nose. Remember, when a fish takes, we've got that light tippet on. We want to strike very gently. It'll just be a sipping rise. There he is. All right, there we go. Okay, we'll just keep some good pressure on this fish. Like he's going to cooperate and come right over. Okay, this fellow just sipped this ant in. You have to watch so carefully. When a fish takes an ant, he's not going to make a splashy rise. He's just going to tip up, and his nose will just penetrate the surface film, and he'll just sip that sucker in. So such a quiet rise, you really have to keep on your toes. Nice, strong fish. Most of these fish that we've caught today are really putting up a good scrap, well-conditioned fish. And you have to remember, we've got that light tippet on. Just keep that tip up, keep some pressure on him. You want to remember, when netting a fish, you can get his head up just on top of the water. That's so important. Just slide that head first into the net. guy's not quite ready to come into the net. There we go. Okay. Good looking rainbow. My, they love those ants. These warm summer afternoons, they get the fish up. They'll keep them up, and you just watch for those sipping rise forms. There we go, Phil.
Knowing how to fish terrestrials effectively can save your day in the stream. To be successful at this type of fishing, you must be very observant of everything going on around you. Both the stomach pump and the small net you carry in your vest are invaluable in helping you determine what's on the water and what the fish are eating. Most of the time, when trout are rising, they are feeding on a hatch of aquatic insects. All aquatic insect hatches come in a constant order, starting one after another at the same time each season. Weather can slightly compress or lengthen their time frame, but basically, the emergence of each species will begin and end over the same period year after year. In our first strategy tape, I showed you how to select the right fly and make proper presentation to fish that were rising to simple hatches, an emergence of only one species of aquatic insects. Now I'll show you how to handle the compound hatches and the complex hatches. There are two types of compound hatches, the masking hatch and the mimicking hatch. The masking hatch occurs when a larger, more noticeable insect hides the presence of a much smaller, darker insect. For some reason, probably because the smaller insect is present in such great numbers, the fish often prefer to feed on the smaller fly. The smaller flies seem almost invisible, especially when comparing them to the larger, lighter colored flies. An example would be large mayflies and small dark caddis hatching at the same time. The mimicking hatch occurs when a large insect emerges simultaneously with a slightly smaller insect of the same general color and one or two sizes smaller. The two are usually so close in color that they are almost impossible to distinguish on the water. You must be alert for the compound hatches, as they are very important and one of the main reasons why knowledgeable anglers do not do as well as they should during hatch situations. Now let's go on to the complex hatches. The complex hatches occur when there are many types and stages of insects on the water at the same time. This situation creates the most difficult problem in hatch matching. I've seen as many as 15 different stages of flies in the water at one time. This, of course, means you have the choice of 15 different patterns. Things can get quite complicated, but this is part of the challenge of fly fishing. Here are some tips to help you solve the problem of the compound and the complex hatches. A knowledge of rise forms can help considerably. The larger the insect, or the more likely its chance of escaping the water's surface, the more splashy and noisy the rise. A jump rise often means that the naturals are fluttering or skittering over the water. Conversely, the smaller the insect, or the less likely its chance of escape, the quieter the rise. Knowing this general rule can often cut down your choice of flies by 50%. The type and speed of the water can be a major key as to what type of insect is hatching. For example, most ephemerellas emerge from the shallow riffles. Pseudoclones prefer vegetation. And trichos hatch out of quiet backwaters. If you can get into the right line of drift, you can use the net to scoop up whatever is floating by. This procedure will at least tell you what's on the water. If a complex hatch is going on, it may still leave you with quite a few choices, but the net will narrow the selection. The stomach pump is the most valuable tool in your vest as long as you can catch one fish. It tells you instantly what is being taken. Over the years, it has taught me more about the feeding habits of trout than anything else. One of the most important findings with the pump is that rising trout take in fantastic numbers of mayfly nymphs right on the surface. This makes a floating nymph one of the deadliest hatch matching patterns of all. The pump has also revealed that they feed heavily on emergers. This is a natural that is somewhere between the nymphal stage and the dun stage. The imitations for floating nymphs and emergers are quite similar. Both have the coloration of the nymph body, with the main difference being that floating nymphs have a fur ball or hump over the thorax area that represents the expanding wing case, while the emergers have short duck-quill segments that imitate the emerging wings of the natural as they are just beginning to peek out through the splitting nymphal skin. Both of these patterns are dry flies and should be dressed with floatant and fished on top like any other dry. There are two good reasons why floating nymphs and emergers are so effective. The first is that there are so many of them on the water. When you start using your net and stomach pump on a regular basis, you'll find this is true. The second is that imitating these two stages, especially the floating nymph, is relatively easy compared to imitating the adult flies. The hardest features to simulate on the fully hatched natural are the wings. Most tyers make them too long and too skinny. For proper proportions, the wings should be no longer than the body and provide the broad outline of the natural. For the floating nymph, the wings are eliminated altogether, with a single ball of fur tied in their place. For the emerger, very short stubs, which are relatively easy to tie, are substituted for the long, delicate wings of the adult. It boils down to the fact that it's easier to fool the fish with simple, uncomplicated imitations. And it also boils down to the fact that you should always carry a good selection of floating nymphs and emergers in your vest for those tough, selective risers. Sometimes trout will establish a feeding rhythm when there are hundreds of flies in the water. They can't possibly take every natural that drifts by, so they feed at intervals, which are often on an exact time span. At other times, they'll take a series of flies in rapid succession, then rest. With either method, a definite rhythm is established. Once you figure out this pattern, you'll know when to cast so that your fly will be over the fish at the right time. Sometimes the trick is to make your fly twitch or move a little, just as it comes into the trout's window. This represents a natural that is trying to escape from the water and oftentimes induces a strike. Here's a rule that I feel is very important. Don't waste too much time on the wrong pattern. This is especially important when the hatch is not too heavy and the trout are taking almost every natural that drifts overhead. By now, your presentation should be developed to a point where you know if it's right or not. If it's right, the only other variable is the fly. So if you're not getting any action after 2 or 3 minutes, change flies. Sometimes I make only 4 or 5 good floats over a riser with a new fly, and if nothing happens, I switch. Another aid in helping you select the right fly during a complex hatch is learning to apply the pounds of meat law. Over the years, it's been my observation that a fish almost always feeds on the stage of the particular insect that represents the greatest pounds of meat. This is why trout feed on the tiny naturals so often. The small insects make up a much greater weight of food because they normally hatch in such great numbers. Hundreds of size 24 tricos add up to a lot more pounds of meat than the occasional Hendrickson or brown drake that floats by. Fish like to feed and feed often, so why should they wait several minutes for a large fly when they can gorge on the small ones one after another? As this balance of poundage changes from insect to insect, stage to stage, so do the feeding habits of the fish. I've given you a general idea of what to do. Now I'll give you a step-by-step procedure to help you solve the difficult problems of the compound multiple hatch. First, observe as closely as possible. Put your nose down in the water and try to determine which insect represents the most pounds of meat. Second, study the rising fish with your monocular. Try to see if they are taking a particular fly. Third, if possible, wade over into the line of drift and use your net. Hold it in the current for at least 30 seconds or longer. This should show you everything that's on the water. Then identify the naturals in the net and apply the pounds of meat law. And finally, if you can catch at least one fish, use the stomach pump to verify what the fish are really feeding on. If you simply cannot catch a sample, Match up size, shape, and color to the best of your ability. Remember, flies floating on the water and flying overhead look bigger than they really are, especially the light-colored ones. Also, if you must make a choice between an artificial that is lighter or darker than the natural, I'd recommend the darker version. I've found that the fish tend to reject flies that are too light in color and are more receptive to the darker patterns. When all else fails, the solution to the problem of selecting the right fly during a compound or complex hatch can usually be found from this list of flies. The Adams in sizes 14 to 20, the Henryville in sizes 16 to 20, the Blue Wing Olive in sizes 18 to 22, the Brown Spinner in sizes 16 and 18, and the Brown Floating Nymph in sizes 16 to 22. If you're a fly tyer, I recommend strongly that you carry a tying kit with you in the stream. I have a very tiny kit that can be carried right in my vest. It consists of a minimal number of tying tools, an extremely small vise that velcros to my leg, bobbin, scissors, and hackle pliers, plus a small packet of tying materials, hooks, dubbing, wing feathers, and hackles. With this kit, I can quickly tie most any hatch-matching fly that I need. All I have to do is catch a sample of what I must imitate and then sit down on the bank and tie it. In a matter of minutes, you can fabricate a replica of what the fish are feeding on. The portable tying kit has saved my day in the stream many times. It also adds another exciting element to your sport. Now that you know how to select the right fly, you must be able to present it in a natural manner. Good dry fly presentation requires a knowledge of fly casting basics, knowing what casting techniques to use, and lots of time on the practice field. You must be able to present your fly properly from any position on the stream. Now, here's a quick review of fishing the clock. First, I want to demonstrate how to fish the upstream quadrant of the clock, from about the 10:30 position to the 1:30 position. This is basically upstream dry fly fishing. It's what I call low profile casting. You throw the line in there fairly straight, immediately put it over the finger, lower your rod, take in the slack. Make your next cast, shoot it back out straight, line over the finger, take in the slack. Now, if you've got a fussy riser up here, you don't want your line to go over him, then you use your reach cast. Lay the line and leader over to the side like that, and you won't spook the fish. If you want to fish a little more towards the 10:30 angle, you'd put a little reach out to the right like that. And if you want to fish a little more towards the 1:30 position, you'd reach off to the left like this. Okay, now let's fish across stream to the left bank. This is what I mean by the left bank, the quadrant from 1:30 to 4:30 on the clock. In other words, where the current is flowing from left to right. The very best mode of presentation to the left bank is the crossbody reach cast. After you make the cast, put the line over the finger, lower the rod, go with the flow, end up reaching downstream as far as you reached upstream for the cast. If you want to extend that drift, make the cast and immediately start popping your rod to feed out more line. For you right-handed casters, this is a great mode of presentation to cover that left bank. Now, let's cover the downstream quadrant. By the downstream quadrant, I mean from the 4:30 position on the clock to the 7:30 position on the clock, where the current is flowing away from my body position. The key to that kind of fishing is maximum slack line casting, followed by feeding, where you put the line over your finger, feed it from your left hand to your right index, and bounce it out the guide. Let's do another one of those. throw maximum slack line, and immediately feed the line downstream, go with the flow, get a nice long float. Now, if you want to fish a little more towards the 430 position, do a little left reach cast and also add the slack. You make the reach, you pull back at the last minute, then you bounce the rod, feed the line down. If you want to feed more towards the 730 position, then you reach to the right, pull on the line at the last minute, get a nice pile of slack, bounce the rod, feed it down. Great presentation. The fly comes in the window before the line and leader. Now, let's fish across stream to the right bank. By the right bank, I mean the quadrant from the 730 to the 1030 position, where the current is flowing from my right to the left. A very effective presentation to the right bank is a simple reach cast up to the right, followed by putting the line over the finger, lowering the rod, going with the flow, feeding a little line out. But even a more effective presentation would be to develop your curve cast. The basic curve, cast sidearm, stop the rod dead, let the fly hook around. An even better curve that you want to develop is to use your left hand and paint a little harder with your right, and you can handle a wind in most any situation. Feed that line down, great mode of presentation. Now we're back around to the upstream quadrant. Practice fishing the clock until it becomes instinctive, until you can deliver all the combinations quickly and effectively. When you develop the ability to get drag-free floats from any position in the stream, you'll be able to fish successfully in places where others can't. Now you're ready to try fishing with midges, where casting skill really pays off. This may be the toughest trout fishing of all, not only because of the tiny patterns involved, but also because of the extremely accurate casts that are required. Most natural midges are incredibly small. There are exceptions. I've seen them as large as a size 14 on some western lakes, but by and large, most midges across the country are in the size 24 range. The pattern is critical. The smaller the fly, the greater the chance of error in tying it. For example, a 1 millimeter mistake in length is hardly noticeable on a size 12 mayfly imitation, but on a 3 millimeter midge, you're off by a third. So midges should be simple, uncluttered patterns with great attention paid to size. I basically use flies like this midge pupa and these tiny hackle and no hackle flies, sizes 22 and 24, to imitate the adults. To determine the exact size and color of the naturals, use your net. Check the vegetation in the stream for the pupas, and scoop the adults off the surface. For my midge fishing, I prefer a graphite 2 fly rod, 8 or 8.5 feet in length. For most of my fishing, I use a 5-weight line, but when I do this light stuff, I drop my line weight down to a 4, sometimes down to a 3. And of course, I prefer a weight-forward, high-vis floater. For a reel, just a simple, lightweight manual reel does a great job for this type of fishing. Along with the problem of fishing a fly that's only 3 millimeters in length, you must use long 6X or 7X tippets. This combination makes for very difficult casting, especially in the wind. Add to this fact that the fish will not move very far to take such a small fly, and the problem is compounded even more. In midge fishing, you'll encounter the narrowest feeding lanes of all, because trout simply won't expend the extra energy for such a small reward. You must make pinpoint cast, followed by drag-free floats. Fish usually midge where it's difficult to get good natural drifts, so cast your fly quite close to the riser. This increases your chances of getting the fly over the trout before drag sets in. Try hitting the riser on the head. He may think it's a natural settling on the water. With these small flies and light tippets, you can usually cast close to the fish and not spook them. Also, the shorter the float, the more float you get. The main thing is to be accurate. Be sure you hit that narrow feeding lane. Also, you must be very gentle when setting the hook. Just raise the rod with the arm, don't snap it up with the wrist. Sometimes, with a super hard take from a big fish, don't strike at all. In fact, you may have to give a little bit, give with a punch, and even let a little line run out through your fingers. Using too small a tippet, especially on big fish, takes too long. It fatigues the fish and increases your chances of breaking off. 6X is about as fine as I go. Now, here are some tips that will help you land fish quicker without horsing. If you have a big fish hooked and he stays still or runs at you, quickly put the line over your little fingers so you can crank in the slack under tension. Pull the fish side to side when he's straight below you. Make him fight the current, otherwise you'll never wear him out. When a big fish makes a wild dash across the stream, point the rod right at him. A high rod creates too much friction in the guides and you'll break off. The critical step in playing a big fish is keeping the same tension in the rod from start to finish. It's a matter of smooth give and take. Now point the rod at him when he runs, then raise the rod when he stops, and as you lower the rod, crank in the slack. When you can't follow a fish downstream, roll cast a loop of line down past the fish, and often he'll feel the reverse pull and come back upstream. Try not to overplay the fish or horse him in. Overplaying not only wastes fishing time, but it's hard on the fish. If you do overplay and fatigue the fish, then you must spend more time reviving him. If you horse the fish, you'll probably break off, then you'll have to tie in a new fly, which not only takes time, but costs you money. Now let's try for a midging trout. Okay, here's a typical midge situation. We've got all this vegetation over here along the bank. Between me and the vegetation, I've got a heavier current, but those midge pupas are squirming around in that vegetation and they're coming out and hatching. And those fish are laying back over there just taking them real gentle. You've got to look awful close to see some of those rises. Once in a while you see a dorsal fin or a tail coming out. There's a couple rising over there right now, very hard to see. Just little tipping and sipping, we call it. The thing that's difficult to the fly fisherman is you've got to cast across that heavy current and lay it in there where that current's almost dead, where those fish are feeding. To do this, you've got to either hook it in, throw a lot of slack, and you've got to be extremely accurate. Don't throw too far upstream. Remember, the further you throw upstream from your target, the greater the chance of drag forming before that fly gets down to the fish. So I try to throw very close. With these little flies and fine tippets, you can usually hit them right on the head and not spook them if you cast right. Nope, there's a couple of good ones rising over there. I just saw the tip of their nose come out. Now a few more of them are starting up. Maybe we'll make a cast over there and see what we can do. I've got a little midge pupa pattern on here. Try to keep the line upstream from the fly. Now if you do get a strike in this situation, just lift the rod gently. Okay, I wasn't sure in that one because I couldn't see my fly, so I just barely lifted the rod. If you snap it up, you're going to break off every time, especially in bigger fish. Let it go past the fish, gently come out with it. Sometimes you have to be careful with your false cast so you don't spray water on the rising fish, especially in that calm water. Now that little breeze just kind of put them down. Maybe we'll try one or two more casts over there. Tough to get a very long float. Okay, the breeze has kind of slowed them down. Usually in that situation, I'll wait until they start up again. You can figure if they won't even take the naturals, you don't have much of a chance. Usually the wind has a big bearing on it. If it's blowing too hard, the fish just don't like to rise. This is a lot of stalking. You got to have a lot of patience. Got to wait them out. See if we can get them going here again. Oh yeah, there. Okay, nice fish. Big one. Whoo! Nice trout. Took that little old midge. Nice drag-free float. behind those weeds. Ho-ho! Yeah, better get this rascal on the reel. We'll be parting a little 6X company here. Come on, baby. Come on. Feel better when I get you on the reel. Now all we got's the weeds to worry about. We keep that head high. If he charges, of course, I'll have to go with the rod. Okay, come on now. Over the weeds. Be nice. Come on, guy. Oh, I think it's a rainbow. Yeah, it is. That confirmed it. That confirmed it. Oh, and I think he jumped right into the weeds. See if we can get him out of there. Get him out of there. There we go. How about another jump, huh? Yeah, yeah. Up, up, up. Right. Oh, you stretch my line for me. Get going through these weeds a little bit. I'm using 6X and size 24s. It's not a real quick process. Oh yeah, nice looking. Nice looking. Heavy guy. Heavy guy. Come on now, get your head up. Now, when you get into these bigger fish, you can rotate your body and get him up above you. Then the current's going to pull him right back to you. And it's a lot easier to land. Oh, yeah. Nice rainbow. Oh, that little midge in his snout. Well, we'll give him a release here. This guy must, wow, even though it was in the snout, it was really in there. He must like midges the way I kind of dig ice cream. Pretty rainbow. Pretty rainbow. Oh, I'll take a midge and trout any day. All right, guy. Go back home. You've been great. In this tape, I've shown you how to streamline your thought process and how to greatly improve your physical skills of presentation so that you can become a super fly fisherman. For those non-hatch periods, when the fish are not feeding on top, I taught you how to use stack mending to fish nymphs on the bottom, how to use advanced streamer techniques to cover maximum water, and how to fish dead water quickly and effectively with realistic dry flies. We then covered those exciting but very challenging situations where rising fish become extremely selective. You learned to catch trout that were sipping on ants. I showed you how to identify and fish the masking hatch and the mimicking hatch. I then taught you a step-by-step procedure that will allow you to effectively cope with the multiple complex hatches. I demonstrated how to apply the fishing the clock techniques to actual stream situations. And finally, I showed you how to fish the tiny midges. I hope you've enjoyed our journey through these tapes as much as I have. I think fly fishing is the greatest pastime there is, mainly because it's made up of so many individual skills, both physical and mental, and there's always something new to learn. You now have the ability to take the most selective trout from the very toughest places. I hope you'll soon become the very best fly fisherman you can possibly be. Pretty good fish, pretty good fish. Shaking his head. Acts like a brown, but I know he's got a red stripe on him. He's gonna wake up in a minute. Get this excess in here. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Do something. Come on. Probably hasn't felt the hook yet. Oh, we got him on the reel now. That's where I want him. Oh, there we go. A little bit. Come on, jump. Jump, 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 jump. There's the jump. Well, I hope 5X will hang in there. Come on now. Come on. Oh. This ain't gonna last long, I don't think. Come on now. He wants that brush. He wants the brush. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Up, head up. Oh, 5X, hang on. Come on, baby. Come on now. Get up this way. Get up this way. Get down in that riffle. We're dead. We're dead. Come on, come on. Oh! Oh, here we go. God, that was a nice one. Better check the old fly and see if it's left. Oh, I'll be darned. Broke the hook off. Broke the tip right off of it. Well, we'll retire this guy. Good fish, good fish. You don't land them all. Not in this game, anyway.
If it's excitement you're after, come fishing with the experts from 3M Scientific Anglers and learn ways to catch more and bigger trout on the fly. You'll learn where to find trout in a stream and ways to present the right fly with the perfect cast so you can catch the most elusive trout during hatch and non-hatch situations. Plus, there's steelheading for 20-pound rainbows or going for the ultimate saltwater challenge. Let 3M Scientific Anglers bring home the excitement while you learn a lifetime of mastery techniques that will help you become the best fly fisherman you can be. There's no other sport like fly fishing. It can truly give you a lifetime of discovery and enjoyment. Whether you fish your own favorite stream or travel the world with your fly rod, there's no end to what you'll learn. To help speed you along your path of discovery, Scientific Anglers from 3M has recruited some of the world's best fly fishermen to produce a complete learning system of videotape programs. Unlike simple how-to videos, the Scientific Anglers Mastery Series shows you more than just tips. It gives you an easy-to-learn formula for success to truly help you become a master angler. There are programs designed to give you a strong foundation of knowledge and skill. At the next level, the Mastery System helps you integrate the skills and knowledge into sophisticated fly fishing strategies. And for the expert, there are challenge-level programs that offer original and innovative techniques to help you master the most difficult fly fishing situation. Think of it as a learning path towards fly fishing mastery. The tape you just viewed is part of that path. In Doug Swisher's Trout Series, Scientific Anglers presents a 4-part program that features a natural learning progression. First, there's basic fly casting, where you learn loop control and the principles of throwing a perfect straight line cast. Then you move on to advanced fly casting, building your skills with more complex casting techniques, including curve and reach cast. Now you're ready for action as Strategies for Selective Trout shows you how to fish a hatch from bottom to top. And you'll almost feel the strike as Doug demonstrates ways to take difficult trout in non-hatch conditions. Finally, in Advanced Strategies for Selective Trout, Doug teaches you his most sophisticated methods, including ways to successfully fish the Midge, how to unlock the mysteries of masking hatches, and special streamer tactics to catch big trout. You'll be part of the action as you look through the eyes of the expert and learn the real whys behind the mastery of fly fishing for trout. While you're improving your streamside skills, you may also want to learn to tie your own flies. Gary Borger shows you a step-by-step approach to the basics of fly tying. And Doug Swisher demonstrates how to tie flies to match the hatch and his deadly attractor patterns. If you're hooked on catching the big ones, you've got to see the 4-part series on fly fishing for Pacific steelhead. Lonnie Waller and Jim Teeney will provide you with a complete arsenal of skills so that you can take these giant rainbows, even in the most challenging conditions. But that's not all. Scientific Anglers takes you south to watch world record holder Billy Pate demonstrate his secrets of success for hooking up and landing the ultimate fly fishing game. And if you love fishing, hunting, and other sports, think of 3M as your total video resource for outdoor adventure. explosive action, in-depth information, incredible scenes. 3M Sportsman's Video Collection brings you the world of bass fishing with America's top anglers like Doug Hannon, Ricky Klein, and Al Linder. A comprehensive learning series that'll make you the best bass angler on your lake. You'll be glad you watched these programs when you catch the bass of a lifetime. The gentle beauty of a deep forest glade. The heart-pounding excitement of a trophy buck in rut. Going one-on-one with North America's most popular big game animal. That's what deer hunting's all about. And nobody brings you more in-depth information and true life action than the 3M Sportsman's Video Collection. The excitement of calling a bird into your gun. The satisfaction of making a clean shot. And the companionship of a well-trained dog. If you like the challenge of upland game bird and waterfowl hunting, 3M Sportsman's Video Collection gives you the thrill of being there and the knowledge you need to master the sport.